Right, so slope is probably the most important thing that you will like do for the rest of your math life all the way through calculus. So I know you're like, what? I'm not doing calculus. So for slope, the first way that we learn slope is it's the rise over the run. So when we rise up, right, what's changing? Our vertical is changing. When we run horizontally. Nobody runs up walls unless they're like great at parkour. So this is like the change in y over the change in x. Right, so formula y, sometimes we get a y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that'll work. If you're a fan of just like plugging things into formulas, if that's your thing, go for it. So for me, I like to think about slope questions this way. So for starters, I want to find my smallest value of y, which is right here, 4. So if I go here, right, 4 to 6, my rise is 2. Positive, right? I'm going up 2. So then I just have to go the same way, right? I can't go from 9 to 1 because I already established I'm going from kind of like right to left here. So if I go from 1 to 9, right, I'm running 8. So my slope is going to be 2 over 8 or 1/4. Right, so that's my slope. Other things we can do, right? So if you kind of like picture, though you don't have to, right? 1/4 and then 9/6. There's a positive slope there, right? It's going upwards, right? So that's positive slope. I don't know if my number's correct, but at least I know there should be positive and not negative. For now, next thing we want to do, parallel and perpendicular to this line. All right, so parallel lines are easy. If two lines are parallel to one another, right, just like those L's in parallel, they never touch because the slopes are the same. So if the slope of line MN was 1/4, our parallel line is also going to be 1/4. Perpendicular is a little bit tougher, right? This is one of these things that we want to kind of like, I think, understand, right? So if two lines are perpendicular, there are two things that are going to be true. Number one, the lines are always going to have opposite signs. If one's positive, one's going to be negative. There's going to be one exception, horizontal and perpendicular. Cross that bridge when you need to. The second thing is that the slopes are reciprocals of one another. So remember, reciprocal or reciprocal, if we have a number, if we want a reciprocal, we just flip it over. Take the bottom, make it the top. The reason that this is kind of true, right? If I have a line that looks like this, if anything's perpendicular, it has to cross it at a right angle. So right now, my blue line has a positive slope. My red line has a negative slope. Notice the blue line's kind of like narrow. It's not that steep, but that red line is dropping fast. So any way that I write these, right, whenever if now, right, this blue line is negative, the red has to be positive. Blue line's negative, red has to be, sorry, blue line's positive, red has to be negative, right? So you always have to have different signs. Also, as this blue line gets a smaller slope, the red line has to get a bigger slope, right? That's that inverse relationship. That's where the reciprocals come in. All right, so first thing, if I have 1/4, I want to switch the sign on it. 1/4 is positive, so I need a negative slope. If I have 1/4, when I flip 1/4, I get 4/1. So my perpendicular line would have a slope of -4. All right, so if I look at choice or question B, right, so I'm going to find my smaller number, -4, I'm going to go to +2. If I'm 4 below and I want to be 2 above, I'm going 4 and then another 2 to get there. I'm rising 6. So then I'm going from 4 to -2. Uh-oh, now I'm at 4. I'm going backwards to get to -2. I'm going backwards 6. 4 to get to 0, and then another 2 to get to -2. So my run is -6. Right, so rise over run, 6 over -6. Well, 6 divided by 6 is 1. My top is positive, my bottom is negative, so I'm going to get a -1 back out. Again, if you want to visualize this, -2, +2 is right there. 4, -4 is like right there. So my slope has to be negative. Don't know from this picture that it's going to be 1, but I do know that it has to have a negative sign. All right, so then my parallel line is going to have the same slope, -1. My perpendicular line So the first thing that I want to do is change the sign. So since this one's negative, mine is going to be positive. And then, well, if I flip one, I have like 1/1, right? One's in the bottom, one's in the top. I flip it, I still get a 1 in the bottom, 1 at the top. So I'm just going to get +1 as my perpendicular slope.